Imagine a man who owns the entire known world, yet his most brutal battle is fought inside his own skull. 1800 years ago, on the frozen banks of the Danube, Marcus Aurelius, a philosopher general, sat in a tent while the world screamed for his blood. Outside, 10,000 barbarians were sharpening their axes. Inside his own camp, his generals were plotting his demise. His body was failing him. His lungs were heavy with the damp cold of Germania. Any other man would have broken. He would have roared in frustration, lashed out at his subordinates, or drowned his fear in wine. But Marcus Aurelius did not break. He did not blink. While the world was a wildfire, he was the center of a hurricane. His secret wasn't the strength of his legions or the gold in his treasury. It was a lethal calm, a silence so absolute that it turned every insult into dust and every threat into an opportunity. He didn't just survive the chaos, he used it to forge the most powerful manual for mental sovereignty ever written. Today we aren't just reading his quotes, we are re-entering his tent. Because in a world that is designed to make you reactive, weak, and loud, the most dangerous thing you can become is still. Look at the men around you. They are leaking. Modern society has turned you into a reaction machine. Someone cuts you off in traffic. You react. A stranger says something offensive online. You react. Your boss gives you a look. You spend 3 hours rehearsing an argument in your head that will never happen. Every time you lose your temper, you are handing a remote control to the world and saying, "Here, tell me how to feel." Marcus Aurelius called this the puppetry of the soul. He realized that most men are just puppets, their strings being pulled by every minor inconvenience and every wandering emotion. When you get angry, you feel powerful for a second. You feel that heat in your chest, the thumos, and you think you are standing up for yourself. But you're wrong. Anger is not strength. It is a leak. It is the sound of a pressurized vessel failing. Every time you lash out, you are broadcasting your insecurity to the world. You are showing everyone exactly where your off switch is located. To the Stoic, a man who cannot control his own emotional response is no more than a child or a beast. He is a slave to his environment. If you want to be lethal, you have to stop leaking. You have to understand that your calm is not a lack of emotion. It is the ultimate form of power. It is the ability to stand in the middle of a storm and decide with surgical precision if any of it actually matters. Before we can build the armor, we have to find the cracks. Marcus Aurelius lived by a single terrifyingly simple rule. The mind is a citadel. He understood that the world can take your gold, it can take your health, and it can eventually take your life. But it cannot enter the fortress of your mind unless you open the gate. Most men live in open cities. They have no walls. Every time someone says something mean, the gates fly open. Every time the economy dips, the city is sacked. They are constantly being occupied by the opinions and actions of people they don't even like. But the lethal calm starts when you realize that there is a boundary that no one can cross without your permission. Marcus wrote, "Things do not touch the soul." Think about that. The insult directed at you? It's just vibrations in the air. The betrayal? It's just an action by another person. These things are external. They stay outside the walls. The only thing that can hurt you is your judgment of those things. If you decide that an insult is a disaster, you have just invited the enemy inside. But if you look at it and say, "That is just noise," the citadel remains untouched. This is not about being numb. It's about being sovereign. It's about knowing exactly where you end and where the world begins. But to keep the citadel strong, you need a different perspective. You need to see the world from a height that makes your enemies look like ants. Whenever Marcus felt his anger rising, whenever he felt the warm cage of his own ego closing in, he practiced a mental exercise called the view from above. Imagine your consciousness detaching from your body. You rise through the roof of your tent above the Roman camp, floating higher and higher until the entire province of Germania is just a smudge on a map. You keep rising until the curve of the earth reveals itself, and then you keep going. You look at the vastness of time and space, and you finally face the truth that most men are too terrified to acknowledge. You are a grain of sand. That big problem you have at work, it's a grain of sand. That person who disrespected you and made your blood boil. A grain of sand. The entire conflict you are currently obsessing over, the drama that feels like the end of the world, it will be forgotten in 100 years, along with the names of every single person involved. When you zoom out to this cosmic scale, the lethal calm becomes your natural state. It is impossible to stay truly angry when you realize how microscopic the stakes are in the grand theater of the universe. Anger requires you to believe that you are the center of existence. It requires you to believe that your feelings are more important than the stars. But when you adopt the view from above, you stop being a frantic actor in the drama, and you become the silent observer of the facts. From this height, the storm doesn't look like a threat. It just looks like weather. And a man of character doesn't argue with the weather. He simply prepares for it. The world thinks that staying calm means being caught by surprise and keeping a straight face. Marcus Aurelius knew better. He knew that the only way to be unshakable in the moment of conflict is to have already fought the battle in your head 1,000 times. He practiced Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. Every morning before the sun touched the horizon, he told himself, "Today I will meet the ungrateful, the violent, the treacherous, and the envious." He didn't do this to be a pessimist, he did it to build mental armor. Most men are destroyed by conflict because they walk into the world with their skin exposed, expecting everyone to be kind and every day to be easy. When the world finally bites them, they scream in shock. But when you visualize the betrayal, the insult, and the failure before you even leave your house, you rob the world of its power to shock you. You are no longer reacting to a disaster. You are simply checking off a list. Ah, the ungrateful person has arrived. I expected him. This is the lethal edge of the Stoic mind. You are already living in the aftermath of the catastrophe, which means the catastrophe has no power over your heartbeat. You have already worn the armor. The arrows of the world simply bounce off. If you want to master lethal calm, you must learn how to discard 90% of what is currently stressing you out. Marcus Aurelius lived by a principle called the dichotomy of control. He looked at every problem and asked one simple, brutal question. Is this something I own or something I don't? You do not own the weather. You do not own the traffic. You do not own the economy, and most importantly, you do not own the opinions or the actions of other people. To the Stoic, these things are indifferent. If they happen, they happen. To spend a single second of your thumos, your vital energy, worrying about them is a form of mental suicide. What do you own? You own your judgment. You own your intentions. You own your reaction. Imagine the power of a man who only cares about the things he can actually change. When someone insults you, that insult belongs to them. It is on their side of the line. Why would you reach across that line, pick up their garbage, and bring it into your own house? Lethal calm is the result of a surgical separation. You stop fighting ghosts. You stop arguing with the wind. You focus every ounce of your energy on the only territory you actually govern, the space between your own ears. When you stop trying to control the world stops being able to control you. Most people see an obstacle as a reason to stop. Marcus Aurelius saw an obstacle as a reason to accelerate. He wrote one of the most powerful sentences in the history of human thought. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Think about a massive forest fire. If you throw a bucket of water on it, you might dampen it. But if you throw a fallen tree into the heart of a roaring inferno, the fire doesn't say stop. It consumes the wood, it grows hotter. It uses the very thing meant to obstruct it as fuel to become even more powerful. This is the secret of lethal calm in the face of conflict. When someone attacks you, they are handing you fuel. Their insults are the wood. Their betrayal is the dry brush. If your internal fire, your thumos, is weak, their actions will extinguish you. But if you have built your inner citadel, you don't just endure the conflict, you use it. You use the disrespect to practice patience. You use the betrayal to practice self-reliance. You use the chaos to prove that your calm is not a mask, but a reality. The lethal part of this calm is that you become unstoppable. Because there is no event in this world, no matter how bad it seems, that you cannot turn into a training exercise for your own soul. You stop wishing for a life without obstacles and start wishing for a fire that can consume anything the world throws into it. In the modern world, we are taught that the alpha is the loudest person in the room. We think that power is shown through shouting, posturing, and having the last word. But look back at the tent in Germania. Look at the emperor. He didn't need to raise his voice to command legions. Lethal calm in a social conflict looks like silence. When someone screams at you, they are trying to pull you into their storm. They are desperate for a reaction because your reaction validates their power. If you get angry, they have won. You have followed their lead. You are the puppet. But when you meet their heat with a cold, unshakable silence, the power dynamic shifts instantly. You become the predator, and they become the frantic prey. There is nothing more terrifying to a loud, weak man than a silent, focused man who refuses to be moved. This is the silence of the blade. A blade doesn't need to make noise to be sharp. It just waits. When you practice this, you don't respond to the words. You respond to the reality. You look through the insult and see the person's insecurity. You look through the anger and see their fear. And because you are calm, you can see the opening. You can choose the exact moment to speak or the exact moment to walk away with total surgical precision. The loudest man is always the most vulnerable. The calmest man is always the most dangerous. Most men will watch this video, feel a temporary spark of inspiration, and then go right back to their reactive, leaking lives. They will nod at the emperor's wisdom and then scream at the next person who cuts them off in traffic. Don't be that man. To build the Citadel, you have to lay the bricks. Starting tomorrow, you are entering the 7-day Stillness Challenge. For the next 7 days, your mission is simple, but it will be the hardest thing you've done this year. First, every morning before you touch your phone or speak a word, you will practice Premeditatio Malorum. You will visualize the potential chaos of your day, the rude boss, the broken plans, the difficult people, and you will decide right then that none of it has the power to touch your soul. Second, whenever a conflict arises, you will enforce a 3-second stillness. You will not speak. You will not react. You will breathe. Zoom out to the view from above and look at the situation as nothing more than a grain of sand. Third, you will choose silence. In every meeting, every argument, and every social interaction, you will speak only when it is absolutely necessary. You will be the calmest, most focused person in every room you enter. 7 days, no leaks, no puppets, no excuses. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one. The tent is empty. The emperor has left the scroll for you. Now go out and prove that you are worthy of the iron. This is Codex Standard. Stay lethal. Stay calm."